All right, welcome everybody. I'd like to call the Beaver Boardwalk Oversight Committee meeting for September 14th, 2022 to order. And just before we get started with anything tonight, I'd like to welcome our newest member of the committee, William. Yes, Chuck. Yes, Chuck. And William said he prefers to go by dinner, so yeah, we'll do a little quick roundtable introduction. So if you just want to introduce yourself and maybe a little bit about why you wanted to be on the committee.
All right, now
Start with you.
Yeah, my name is Bill. You can call me Bill, and I started going to the boardwalk with because of work-related injury, and I started walking around there. And since October last year, I've dropped 50 pounds just walking the boardwalk and with my help of my physician. And as I started looking around, I started seeing the condition of the boardwalk, and sort of come to mind. Kind of like it helped me get back in shape again a little bit more. And with like I said, with the help of my doctor, and I go there 2-3 times a day sometimes, and I meet people from all over Venezuela, California, Barcelona. People are just coming around and visiting, and it's just really nice to see. But then they kind of say, what happened here, what happened there. So it's just, sometimes I think it might be a little embarrassing, for the town, but it's something that needs to be addressed really seriously. But with a oversight committee, now it can be. I think it's a really good plan, a really good step forward.
Awesome, thanks. We go to the big board. Joan, you want to go?
If can anyone hear me? Yeah, okay. Hi, I'm Joan. I'm the youth representative of the Beaver Boardwalk Oversight Committee, and the reason that I wanted to get on this committee is to allow youth in the community to bring up any ideas or concerns and bring their interest and concern about the Beaver Boardwalk. So yeah, all about me.
Thanks, John. Kevin?
Yeah, hi there. Kevin Gedling. I'm one of the Maxwell Lake area reps, and I wanted to join the committee primarily because, like I've said to everybody many times before, I spent lots of time on the boardwalk with my family. When we lived in Jasper, we were coming here to visit the boardwalk regularly, and now that we live in Hinton, living there, the boardwalk was one of the main reasons why we wanted to live in the neighborhood that we're in. So that's kind of an important reason to me. And my background's more in interpretive and educational kind of communications. So I like to try and bring that kind of energy to the committee if I can, wherever. Yeah, it's just exciting to play a part in looking after this important place. So that's me. And I'm stuck at home because I'm just about done with COVID. So,
Hey, thanks, Kevin. Doug?
My name's Doug. I'm also usually on Teams or I guess Zoom, not because of COVID myself, but just because of my shift schedule. I'm also a pretty avid walker and runner, so I enjoy the boardwalk for that reason. Kevin, is this your first time with COVID, or is this the multiple attack?
This is the first time, but I've had 4 shots, and it's more like being grounded. Like it's like it hasn't really been a bad cold or anything. It's just like just don't go near people. Like so, but almost done. So,
Trevor?
Hey everyone, my name is Trevor. I moved to Hinton in 2018, and the boardwalk is why we first started considering moving to Hinton. I'm just a community rep, just someone who loves the boardwalk. That's all I got.
Thanks, Trevor. Tom?
Tom Marshall, resident at large, longtime resident. Boardwalk is a place I go for recreation and for peace of mind, I guess, as well. It's just a place I really enjoy, and feel that the efforts that we're making are bringing it back to some of its former glory, I guess.
Oh, thanks, Tom. Beth?
Oh, Beth McCollum, I've been involved with Boardwalk since the beginning. We informed the Whiskey Jack Club to put a bird list together for their original opening, and I've been involved in various events around the boardwalk ever since. We do cleanups, and I think it's a really important addition to Hinton to have an area that integrates urban sort of living with wildland. That was the part of the point of it. It is a community wetland to help people bridge that busy urban life to the wildland and in easily, so you don't have to drive to the nearest park or whatever. This is part of your everyday lives. It's really important, I think, for future subdivision and development to have some part of nature built into it. We're lucky we have them before.
Thanks. Alice?
Hi, I'm Alice Puckett. I've been in Hinton for 6 or 7 years now, and the boardwalk's great. I love it. It's really nice to have such a diverse wild place right at our doorstep with so many species of birds and the beavers, the ducks. It's a really nice asset that the community has in terms of keeping everyone, from a mental health perspective. Like, I know there's a couple of people in here that have benefited health wise from having the boardwalk, and it's just I'm interested in conserving it in terms of the wildlife that lives there, so that into the future generations of Hintonites can have that same opportunity to experience stewardship and what it is to have a healthy relationship with the land.
Thanks, Alice. Chad, you want to go?
Chad O'Shannock, I work for the town of Hinton. I am the area park supervisor. The boardwalk is a beautiful asset that the town has adopted, and it's just a shame to see it in areas closed off when those areas are just like should be seen and whatnot. But I'm hoping the committee here can get her back in its former glory. It's not a little better.
Oh, thanks, Chad. Heather?
Hi, Bill. I'm Heather. We communicated quite a bit with your application process. Yes, trying to get that sorted out. So thanks for hanging in there with us for that. I'm the Parks, Recreation and Culture Manager. But I have been with this committee in the previous form where it was a council committee, and then through the transition into a public committee with my previous role in strategic services. So I just kind of help keep ducks in a row and keep items flowing. That's sort of what I do here.
I'm Albert Ostashik. I'm a counselor with the town of Hinton, and I'm also the Beaver Boardwalk Community Oversight Committee representative for council and chair of the committee. In my personal life, I was, let's roll back a little bit. Sorry, I'm still with council life. I was also on the original Beaver Boardwalk Committee before it was transitioned to a public committee. Now we can go to my personal life. Personally, I'm interested in the boardwalk because through my professional life, we did a little bit of work and helped out with the construction of the original Beaver Boardwalk. And a long-term resident, I've been here since the original was built, and I used it quite a bit. Not as much now as I used to, but I used to all the time when I had when my dog was with us still. Not so much anymore, but I do want to see it get back to a state where it's something that the community can be proud of and point to as one of our crown jewels. Yeah. Hey, anything else? We're good, Hank. We can move on. Okay, so we can move on. Trevor, are you okay to do minutes remotely?
Yeah, I'm on them.
You good? Okay. All righty. Brings us to first item, agenda, additions to the agenda. Are there any additions from the committee? Any additions or changes from administration?
I just was hoping that for item number 7, we might be able to discuss a date change just with what admin has going on with respect to budget timers.
Okay, I don't think that's something that committee needs to vote on. I think that's fine. We can talk to the about that when we get started. Okay, we need a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Tom. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. So moving into adoption of meeting minutes. I hope everybody had a chance to take a look at the meeting minutes from August 10th. And if there is no changes or corrections or any items that need to be noted, we need a motion to accept them.
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
Again, Tom. Motion to accept from Tom. All those in favor? That was carried unanimously as well. That brings us to our first information item. And that's how closely I looked at the agenda before the meeting started. I was focused on other things. So we've already covered 3.1. So we will move on to 3.2 signage update. It's huge.
So the signs, they look great. Thanks to Alice for working on those. They are at the sign shop. The design is at the sign shop and they're just being creative. So hopefully they'll be up shortly. And these are the wayfinding signs that we discussed. Yeah. So pretty much the update. Yeah.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the committee?
I like the new parking sign. I don't know if I've had a chance to mention that yet.
Sorry, Doug.
I like the new parking lot sign much better.
You literally can't miss it.
Literally cannot. miss
Well,
it.
unless Super Fry is parked in front of it.
Yeah.
He knows it hurts.
Curb yell over there or something. All right. Any other comments or questions about the wayfinding signage?
What exactly is it?
We would have to dig in.
Sorry, Bill, what's the wayfinding sign?
well,
Yeah, maybe we could go over that quickly for Bill and maybe some. the
So,
locations where they're at.
I'm gonna give you a map. There was a concern brought up by Jan, who's another member of the committee, not here tonight, but he was worried because at some point or I think on a couple times he's actually found some like people kind of wandering in the back section there. If you look on the map down here in that M kind of LM section, that's quite a ways back there. And it was starting to become like dusky and whatever. So we determined that we should maybe throw up some wayfinding signs, basically some "you are here" signs. So, just that kind of thing. There are some small ones, but they're not very good. So we're gonna kind of upgrade those. And Alice made some excellent ones, which hopefully we'll actually have them up for the next meeting, maybe.
Okay, got it. Alice?
Would you mind taking a picture for us if you get them up and sending it to the group?
Yeah,
Cool.
sure.
Thank you. Just even one of those.
Yeah, because there was kind of 3 locations.
And we are going to push your communications out through town communication channels.
Yeah.
So that people are aware of the new signage,
Yeah.
if they had a fear or anything like that about kind of traveling further back into the boardwalk. So as soon as Chad gets the signs up, then we'll see the communication go out and we'll be able to send you however many pictures he takes then.
Great. Anything else, committee?
Actually, I got a kind of a motion related to signage. At both entrances, there's still kind of construction notices that when the bridge was built. As that's a few years in the past now, maybe it's a good idea if we went up and tore all those down. So maybe my motion is to do a sweep of old construction signs and remove them as appropriate.
Yeah, that's easy enough.
Do we need a motion for that or is that something you guys are doing anyway?
Well, I was totally just slipped their mind, I guess. But yes, now that it's mentioned, we'll just get it.
Okay. So is that okay, Doug, or do you want to formalize it with the motion?
Is
That's perfectly fine, thanks.
there just two that are up?
There's one at the Sutherland entrance, and then there's one at the what's the name? The one on the
Primer?
side. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay, that's all I think that's all we put up.
Okay, thanks for that, Doug. Hey, if there's nothing further on the signage update, then we'll move on to discussion items, which we have none on the agenda. Action item 5.1, funding application for feedback.
Okay, so I think everybody received the giant SharePoint, I think it was a SharePoint document. OneDrive, something like that, that I shared with you guys. I have it here. I will share my screen for those of you via Zoom. Just gonna make it a bit bigger. Okay, so I do have questions here from Alice. So I thought I would just kind of scan the room. It was quite a long document. Has everybody had a chance to look through it? We're gonna give Bill a pass on this one. He's just joining us. Are there any general comments at this time before I jump in?
Yeah, I have a general comment. I'm
Yeah.
sure there'll be a couple of things we'll talk about. For the most part, though, it seems pretty reasonable to me. You know, we were looking for a detailed assessment of each section with our priorities stacked on top, and that looks like what they've delivered. Absolutely, they've kind of gone through everything and given very detailed notes as to what to do here or there and that sort of thing.
Super, thanks, Doug.
So,
Okay.
anybody else?
Well, I think you'll probably cover it when we get there, but I did find. I did have questions about the costing,
Mhm.
when it says upgrades, what they actually meant by upgrades. And then the towers, I don't think it's in here, maybe you could read why the tower isn't there.
Yeah, that's one of Alice's as well.
Yeah.
So first,
Do you want to do your presentation first, and then if there's stuff that isn't covered, specific questions could
sure.
be addressed then? Is that okay, Alice?
Yeah.
Or sorry, Alice, Beth?
Yeah, and yeah, and sure, that's fine. I've got another general comment, but sure, that can wait. Yeah.
So as you guys will see, our consultants have put together essentially an application to FRIA. And that's all the verbiage at the top of the document. So that's all this background. It talks about kind of what we're trying to achieve, a little bit on the history of the boardwalk, the location. They included a forest resource improvement section because of course we are applying to FRIA. So they've gone in, assessed the FRIA grant and kind of tailored our application to the requirements of that grant. Sorry, I just don't want to miss anything. So here it talks about the stakeholder review. That's part of the overall engagement. So a big thing to keep in mind for this evening is that Jen, our main consultant, and myself, we had a lot of strategy conversations around how to be fiscally responsible with our application. So we don't have full designs at this point because first we wanted to just send costing dollars to FRIA as part of the grant application, which is what all is required. And then once they tell us what the cap is, if we're successful in getting that funding, that's when we'll jump into a detailed design and do our community engagement and any of the stakeholder engagement that is required through AEP, Alberta Environment Parks. So a lot of the costing here, they broke it down using the same sections that we've used, which I really like because we can now just kind of transfer this document to any other grants. You know, just kind of tailor it a little bit, throw our map in there. So we've got a lot of the pieces now at this point. We're going to talk numbers generally here in a moment. Just progress stuff, timeline stuff. So this is their sponsor form. So this is where we need to reach out to Bria and someone on the Bria board has to sponsor us. I've already been in contact with that individual. He's the one that reached out to me about the grant. So I'm hoping to set a meeting with him next week to get this all completed. They came on site, they were here for a whole day. And they went around doing a condition assessment, taking photos of everything, all of the sections, and then they're hoping that that will assist in bringing clarity to the application during the review process. So just some more background information. It's really long document. Sorry to everyone on the screen. I'm sure I'm just making you nauseous by scrolling. It talks about the benefits, you know, safety benefits, why we're doing what we're doing with respect to lowering certain sections. For example, we don't want people falling off. Talks about some of the economic benefits that our community may see. And of course, these are things that are part of the application, right? So that's why these headings are here. Some of the social benefits, and I really like the way that most everyone at the table tonight spoke very eloquently about kind of their experience with the boardwalk and how I think it's just further evidence that the boardwalk really truly is more than just like a physical asset. It does really bring that togetherness in Hinton and helps with our mental health, like Alice said. Talks a little bit about the environmental benefits. There's a blurb in here about our committee. There's the role of Wes Frazier. Really just want to get to the maps. Oh, everybody hang on. There we go. So they have included, why does it look like this on here? Oh, there it goes. So they've just kind of made more simple the map that we have. However, Jen had mentioned we can add this in if they want more particulars, it can just be added as well. Okay, this one here. So I think I'm gonna have to make it a wee bit smaller so it fits on the screen for everybody. So what they've decided to, well, what we've decided is the best way to present this is in a couple different options. So there's kind of one option here. Oh, it's so small. I'm just zooming in. We're gonna have to look at it in pieces because I've also got the space on my screen. So it details up here, right? The colors of can you guys see that? I'll go even bigger. Yeah, cute. So it talks about the substructure replacement. That's the green, right? So that's largely our piles. The new section, so a replacement of AA right here. And then we have minor repairs throughout the back section. We knew about those. Those are kind of not overly challenging issues. And then section rehabilitation here. That's adding that kind of extra bump out on section AA. And then they have some of the substructure areas over here. So we can see that section that we want lowered as well. So they've done the costing.
There's,
Yes,
sorry,
sir.
before you.
Oh, back over here.
Yeah. Where it says blue section removed, what does that mean?
So the old AA has to come out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Sunk in, so we got to figure out a way of getting it out and replacing it. And they are still sorting out right now what that will mean with our current application. So for Bill's benefit, when the original Beaver Boardwalk Committee of Just Council was created, we had a stop work order because we weren't adhering to the requirements of working in a wetland. The organization has since done a lot of learning on what it takes to do work in that wetland, and we were able to secure a 10-year maintenance plan from Alberta Environment Parks. However, there are some constraints on that, largely that we cannot expand or change the footprint in any way. So it was simply done to be able for the guys in Chad's area to go in and, you know, be able to remove a board here, or do a little bit of like jacking it up so that it's level, those kinds of things. And we are allowed to replace pilings as long as if the pile was here, it comes out, the new pile goes exactly in the same spot.
Did I hear something about screw piles?
Yes, so
how come they cost so much?
How come they cost so much? Albert?
I used to do that for a living.
Yes. Do you know why screw piles cost so much?
I thought I read somewhere where one screw pile was $2,500. We should do 30 piles for $2,500. It was-
Also screw piles?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
machine, everything for.
Oh, it's Okay, yes, I do have a reason as to the cost of those in this document.
It kind of struck me when I saw the price of one screw pile. Really.
Yeah. We'll circle back to that when I get to Alice's questions, because she also raised it.
I get you saying, what comes in must go in the same place.
Exactly, yeah. So that's kind of where we're at right now. So for section AA here, to remove it may require a new approval. It's just gonna depend on how we do the design and how we submit kind of our application to AEP to say how we're gonna do the work. Learnings from last time around, we're gonna get AEP in the door much sooner when we start kind of conceptualizing the project, so that we can take their consideration as to how they'd like to see us submit our application at the front end rather than during the consultation period. So that's option one.
So the consultants thought that they couldn't just remove the piles, the wooden piles that are there, replace them with screw piles, or some other concern they were having on PUD.
No, so that's what they want to do.
Right.
But we're just not, like, once we get in there and see how we're attaching other things, when we're doing the design, they'll be able to know whether it's as simple as just pull it up, put them right back down where they are, or if the connection piece, because we haven't had piles there in a while, are going to cause us a bit of an issue.
Right, okay, so when it says remove it,
It's not eliminate,
yeah,
it's remove and replace.
yeah.
Yeah. So then it kind of goes through the class C estimates here. Alice did ask a number of questions about cost. So does anybody else have any questions on this page, or should we just get through it to option 2?
Well, when it comes time for the questions, maybe you could go through all the ones that were submitted beforehand. And then if there's anything that's not
Yeah, so
addressed, then we can ask the questions at that point.
and Alice, you said, yeah, it went to the whole group, so everybody has this email, but Alice, do you want to read out just your questions that you had? And that way, everybody will know if they had similar questions. Is that what you meant?
Or you could, I just didn't want anybody asking a question that Alice already had on your list and you were gonna.
So Alice was wondering on page 3, judging from the appendices, it looks like upgrades refer to widening only. Is that correct? So yes, that is correct, with the exception of the bump out and putting a bench that we talked about for section 8.
So just the areas highlighted in yellow would be widened. Was that what that was indicated?
The sections that we indicated to them, and oh yeah, so here where it says upgraded,
Yeah,
yes,
there's a
so
map,
that's
yeah.
correct.
Okay, so those are to be widened is option 2. Okay, right on.
As option 2, this is not what the group prescribed, right? And I'll speak to that in a second, but yellow on each of the charts is widened. So, second question, section R, the tower, was a high priority on the committee's list. The repair strategy listed in the appendix for both tower sections A and R is none, leave as is. Are the towers part of the 5-year design plan? So yes, I spoke with our consultant about this one just before I sent this out to the committee. So she had misunderstood where we left off with tower R. So A is in decent shape. Tower R was the one where the previous application told us it needs a whole new application. So Jen's staff that were here didn't do a full assessment on that because it didn't understand where it left off. So I followed up with her about that, and she's going to make an amendment and put tower R back in the queue as appropriate. However, it will likely fall kind of, if we have 5 years to complete the project, it will fall later in the work simply because it will require a new application through AEP. And that can take up to a year, as we know.
So the
Okay, and
engineer's assessment where he says tower section R was in satisfactory condition, and that's just not incorrect. He was just misunderstanding the scope of what he was looking at on section R then?
that's correct, yes.
Okay.
Question 3. Why is the SureSpan tender being used for costing? So this is where the strategy that we talked about with our consultants, because we are submitting just a lump sum cost with, hey, these are the things we want to achieve. It is better to err high and then tack on your 25% for contingencies, environmental costs, engineering, scope changes, design changes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what they're hoping is that we would be successful on getting a really high amount. So let's just say $5 million that we get. If we only spend or design something to 4,000 or 4,500,000, then we give the rest back, right? Or if they come in lower and they say, no, you've asked for too much money, so we're going to choose the lower option, we'll scale our design to that. So that's why they've done the higher numbers. And then with specifically with respect to SureSpan, there was no guarantee that anyone would be given a contract to do work on our boardwalk, whether they've been here before or not. So to price it based on previous work was not kind of the methodology that we chose. And I just don't want to throw around the contractor's name, but we all kind of, you know what I'm saying? Yes, no?
I'm not sure I'm following that. Like these.
I might circle this one to do in camera just because I don't want to throw around any
Oh, okay.
names in public. So we'll circle back to that one. Alice, you did, so part of Alice's question was, I had trouble understanding the costing in the document on page 26 and 27. Costs for option 1 are based on the following unit costs. So it was actually really good feedback for our engineers and our consultants to see this, Alice, because she was like, oh, people who aren't engineers, right, don't know all the costs that are embedded in there. So she is considering kind of opening up those cells and really detailing it. So she actually, we don't know who the board members are of FRIA and what kind of level of documentation they're used to seeing. So that's super helpful. And she's going to further itemize that to make it more clear. Question 4. I'm assuming boardwalk removal price is a typo and meant to say boardwalk removal replacement price. That's correct. It's meant to say boardwalk removal, and it includes piles in some cases. And she said again, like, if that wording choice, and I spoke with her on the phone, I said, removal is a very hard word for people in the community to react to because they fear that it's out and it's gone, right? So we're just going to wordsmith that a little bit so that nobody panics. So thank you for that, Alice. Question 5, why is the boardwalk removal price different from option 1, which was 1,400 per square meter, and option 2 is 1,000 per square meter? So ultimately it comes down to economy of scale. The more work that we're doing, if we're widening certain sections, they might be able to get their piles further apart, or there's fewer cuts on the wood and things like that that can reduce the cost if we're doing more at once. So that's why that breakdown shows the difference of $400. Question 6, does the 1,000 to 1,400 boardwalk removal price include screw piles? Yes, it includes cutting them off, cutting off the timber piles to just above the water level. Okay. Was there another piece of that question, Alice? I have a bunch of wording in here.
Well, it just like if you scroll over on your to the left there, yeah. that little table that kind of has the breakdown of cost there.
Here. This one?
Yeah, it has screw piles separate from the boardwalk removal price, and okay, like,
Yeah, so removal is if we have to cut the screw piles, take the decking, move the decking over here, put in a new screw pile. Right, so
you mean the
screw-
wooden piles?
Yeah, sorry, yes, remove the wooden piles, right, so they're gonna cut them all off. With our current plan, they have to fully remove them, right? If we're putting in a new application for certain sections, we may be able to cut them and leave them. So that's why it's costed this way, because she's suggesting that if we can cut them and remove the pieces, this is what it'll cost. To put the new pile, the screw pile in, this is the cost, and that comes to the question of why do the screw piles cost so much?
So where's the decking in this?
That's the superstructure, all timbers, yeah.
I just, why would it
Square
cost
meter.
$1,000 per meter to take posts and wooden?
Yeah,
Fine.
so again, it's totally dependent on, we're shooting high, right? These are the costs that it could cost with what it's taking to get contractors right now, the way that inflation is going, the cost of steel, the cost of timber, etc. We're really shooting high here now. I feel like I'm shooting myself.
But the way you've explained it, that number doesn't have any materials embedded in it. That $1,000 is just for
Removal for
removal,
work.
so there's no materials within that number, so why would it be that high?
I don't think I understand the question. Can someone help? Why would this be? I think it's
Well, you're saying you want to aim high. because
Yeah.
of the cost of materials these days, which I understand,
right.
but wouldn't that be in the superstructure and the screw pile pricing?
Sure, but this is $1,000 to have somebody come in
Let's-
per meter.
But
Thank you, yes.
Labor cost,
Just
for the guys coming to do it, remove the section, put the screw piles in, put that section back on, that would be the labor, the material's already there.
They should say labor then, because this is really.
Yeah, just,
Like, that's really unclear what these numbers are. The descriptions are for.
Kind of material is a screw pile. Like, we used to have all kinds of, we used to have all kinds of issues of what kind of metals we're gonna use. You know, with farms and stuff like that, and this is a protected habitat, so kind of whether it's.
Do you want to address?
Well, I'm not, I know we talked about getting galvanized, but we found hydrowash that one, I think. They're just steel, I think, yeah.
Such as they're gonna rust.
Well, they had a guarantee of, I don't wanna say a number because I'm not 100%. It was like 50 years or something, 75 years, so,
That's the number I recall.
yeah.
That, will they be rusting in the 75 years, like, and then do you have to take them completely out, so they don't
Sure.
disintegrate into the wetland? Now, can we maybe have some. Like, maybe could the town bring us some detail around that? Like, I'm sure you've talked about it before you put
Yeah,
it,
I
but
was trying to find something that detailed, but I don't remember I have that.
Yeah, I don't really know. Yeah.
Or open a can of worms.
I have it.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
no,
It was valid.
Okay, well, Chad's looking for that.
Yes. Yeah, so just to just to get a handle on things, guys.
Yeah.
And I do want to just remind everybody that just keep order and make sure everybody gets a fair and equal opportunity to speak, that everything goes through the chair, please. Okay. Heather?
Now I see Alice's other question. And then the last item from Alice was the section 4.4 financial implications, has only 5 lines of text. Considering the $4 million price tag, I think Freya needs this section to be fleshed out. Simply saying prices were calculated on current 22 pricing on recent tenders may not be adequate. So I did talk to her about that, and she said she's going to go back to her engineers because, similar to the previous comment, people may not be aware that, they're like, no, make this one larger because it's got to carry more weight here, so we need this to cost more, right? So really getting that dialed down, so she's going to take another look at So option 2 then, go over here. So I did chat with Jen about this one because this is, I was really concerned when I saw this in here because it's more than what we asked for, right? It's widening yellow sections that we didn't necessarily say we wanted widening specifically this west loop here. However, when the engineers were out there, they actually raised a good point that I hadn't considered, and I want to bounce it off the committee. They said individuals with perhaps mobility issues or who may be taking a little one out in the stroller may not want to do a full giant loop all the way around. And then she further said, and rather than with this section being widened, correct, because we are widening in here, she's like, it's hard to think that somebody in a wheelchair or with you know, a stroller wants to walk straight down and straight back, right? So she thought that for those who may want a smaller loop, given that this section is in quite a state of disrepair, it would be the easiest section to, once we're in the wetland, it's not the easiest to get to widen. So it was just something that they thought we could submit. We don't have to submit option 2. Or like she said, we can submit option 2, they give us the money for option 2, and then we do a public consultation and people are like, no, we can always take it out. What do you guys think?
Tell us.
Didn't we already vote on this?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, this is how they presented it, and I did have concern. So I just, and she brought up something that we hadn't really considered from that lens. So I just want to know what you guys think about having a shorter loop. And mostly I do kind of want to hear from Doug on this, being I think one of our main parent users out there with a stroller.
Any thoughts you want to share, Doug?
Sorry, I was distracted reading up something else. What was the question about shortening the loop again?
Yeah, so the like we didn't direct them to include this section as wider. However, they were thinking that individuals with mobility issues or pushing a stroller and also a toddler may not want to do a huge giant loop. So they suggested widening here so that an individual could, you know, do a short loop with their wheelchair or stroller or what have you. And then they suggested this section 1 because it's coming off of an already widened section as approved by the committee. But also because that section's in such disrepair, it's less impact than widening, let's say, some other section.
Oh, I certainly think that's I mean, that was one of the sections we put as I think our 3rd priority. But honestly, my opinion is that anyone with strollers and limited mobility will be sticking to the AABB TWX loop there, that first loop that passes by the bridge. Probably that's probably the folks with. Yeah, okay. If you've got limited mobility, I think that's probably where you're going to be going.
Okay.
Which is why we kind of had that as our first priority for stuff.
Alice?
Personally, I would prefer to keep it the regular width. I think that really is the section where you're in the wetland. Like, it's really cool, it's really unique, and again, slowing you down, making you aware of your surroundings and your steps and your sounds. And I think that really is, it's hard to appreciate and understand that experience. It's just kind of something people do without thinking, right? But I do think that that's one of the benefits of the smaller width.
Anyone else want to chime in?
Yeah, I would, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Beth.
Yeah, I would think, you know, there's always the option of going around the beaver pond and turning around and coming right back. And in terms of if you didn't want to do a full on loop, there's a lot of options for shorter walks on boardwalk.
So the one concern she did raise is that may lose us some acceptability points, but I think that what we've done meets the vision of the boardwalk, right? With our recommendation for just this section does meet the vision. And I'll go back through the document to make sure that we're balancing how we're communicating the fact that sure, we could have done a whole accessibility loop here, but maybe that doesn't meet the vision of the boardwalk. So I can have her fully remove this.
Are accessibility points like something that West Fraser is going to weigh heavily?
Yes, they are included in the grant package. And I can't recall the percentage off the top of my head right now.
Well, an important point would be one of the top priorities is creating that accessibility loop around the Beaver Lodge itself, the AATWX loop, like by rebuilding that damaged section. That is the kind of accessible loop with probably the best views too.
Alice? Nope.
And I mean, I don't think FRIA would just be like hard no, right? If it came down to accessibility, they may even come back to us and say, could you make adjustments to make it fit a little bit better, right? A lot of the times there's back and forth with grantors. So we may have to revisit that if it's really sewering us that badly with respect to grant. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Sorry,
Sorry.
Tom was first, Tom, and then Alice.
I'm a little torn as far as that goes, but I think presenting it as part of public consultation isn't a bad idea. Maybe get some impressions from inside the community as well to see where it goes. Just not a lot.
Just a little clarity on that. So when you say providing it for public feedback, that portion happens after FRIA tells us whether we're getting money or not. So, and that's why we have the option, right? Is we can submit all of them and then FRIA could tell us you're doing 2 or you're doing this one, or we prefer this one, but do consultation on all of it, right? Because they do have different dollar amounts. So some might get eliminated just because FRIA goes, we're not giving you that much money. That's option 2, right? But yeah, so public feedback is coming after this is submitted. And that's when we start doing the designs, when we find out whether we have money or not. Because all of those costs are in here.
Alice?
Beth, I was wondering, do you remember when Barry was in a wheelchair, if he was even have a section or not?
Yeah. Yeah, my husband was in a wheelchair before he passed, and he went all around the whole boardwalk. I mean, there was no problem in terms of, like, to me, accessibility, can you get on the boardwalk and off? Because sometimes, you know, the gravel wears away and there's a little drop, and that was the only real issue with him is because he had a big 4-wheel drive, because we're on a gravel road, and occasionally you'd have to tip him up, and that's pretty crazy when you're in a wheelchair to tip him up to go back. But I think that's been addressed fairly well recently, the actual getting on to the boardwalk.
Doug and then Alice.
So Heather, are you looking for a recommendation from the group of us then on this section UV proposed widening, basically separate to what's already here in option 2?
Ultimately, I'm just looking to see whether the group wants to fully remove it from the application or if we leave it in as an option. And then I just had a follow-up to Beth's comments, that's all.
Okay, so section 2 though, sorry, as in fully remove option 2 as an option, or fully remove the UV widening from option 2?
Fully remove option 2 because 1 achieves it without pay.
Okay, and essentially the summary of what option 2 is, it's widening 2 areas west and east.
Here and here, yeah, and we only directed for this to be wider and lower, yeah.
Okay, well, in that case then, how about I make a motion then to say, hey, my motion is I'd recommend that you keep option 1 and 2 then in the report for that on that basis, as I think that's a fairly black and white differentiation as to what is what and with different cost numbers for both.
Okay, thanks, Doug. So we have a motion on the table now, committee. Alice, did you want to speak?
Oh, so just out of curiosity, I'm not sure this is what I'm interested in, but we have a motion on the table to keep both options. So if I just didn't want to include option 2, would we can make a split motion at this point, or like?
I think you just vote against it. I'm not sure though.
Can you just vote against it? Because, but then I would be voting against option one, which is.
Yeah, that's awkward.
Given that I'm not allowed to vote or make motions, I'm just wondering. If Doug might be open to tabling this matter just until we get through the other options, because after I spoke with her. She added 2B, which is exactly what we asked for.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry. Can I table it then? I only saw options 1 and 2. I did not
Yeah,
see.
sorry, this is in a different, it was after I spoke with her, so she sent it right over really quick, yeah. Can you guys see that okay on the screen?
So we don't have this one, Heather?
No, you guys do, I sent it, it was just in a separate attachment.
Yeah, it's a separate file.
Yes.
entirely. Yeah, so you had to kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, this is what we had passed.
Yeah, that's.
Wait, but. Does it not have the new section on the downstream loop?
Down here.
This is 2B. Yeah, 2B, like the sections. Y and.
UNB.
Hmm?
Is that UNB?
UNB, yeah.
So we're gonna stay the same. With
Yeah.
the way I understand.
Sections to be upgraded, okay, because you're,
Yeah.
okay.
Upgraded means wider.
Okay,
Yeah.
because for me, I'm still stuck on upgraded means
Yes.
replacement.
Yeah,
That's where I'm
Yeah,
getting.
yeah, right, so upgraded here means widened, because that's what we asked for,
We
right?
should maybe just say why.
Why-
And that's what I told her.
excellent, yeah.
Yeah.
Simple, please.
And then new section, right, as we talked about at the beginning, is replace, it's replacing what's there.
Just gonna go back to Doug quick then. Doug, do you want to table or do you want to withdraw that motion for now or?
Yeah, you
can
betcha.
always- you can always
Withdraw
make
it
it
is-
again.
Yeah,
Sorry?
withdraw is fine. Yeah.
Okay, so Doug's withdrawn his motion then. I'm assuming there's no opposition from committee. Okay. Alice,
Sorry, I'm still stuck on this map, because it says new section for section A. So that would be,
Remember we talked about that at the beginning, that's replacement, so I'm just jotting that down too, because I did give her the other 2 feedbacks, but new section, I'll tell her to change it to remove and replace.
but don't we have to, like, we would, UV, I'm pretty sure needs to be removed and replaced, doesn't it? Just UV,
That.
like, the one that's been closed for ages.
Okay. Just one sec, I gotta finish my note, just one second.
And. Like,
and we want to make sure Heather captures all this, so just let's give her a second
Yeah,
here.
I got those.
Got it?
Over here, yeah.
yeah, all, like, if you look at option 2, the yellow parts on option 2. The,
Yes,
like,
and I'm
those,
thinking now that she did not understand my direction on the phone, so it should look like 2 with this all being replaced but not wired. So in our, just let me stop sharing because it's in a separate file, stand by, oops, share, oh god. Share screen.
So basically option 2B
Oh,
is
yeah.
supposed to look like option 2 and that it's overlaid on top of option 1 with the upgraded sections.
We. Now I lost.
yeah,
Interpreters.
so
Language is terrible.
Didn't work.
There it is, okay, now I gotta share it, hang on.
like option.
It literally said that.
That's what I was laughing at.
Because we were,
Oh, sorry, no, sorry, I got that. This needs to be on.
Which needs to know the ones.
Yeah. And this one,
Like here, like. Is that in option 1?
yeah, well,
No, this is what we want. We don't want
This-
to,
no,
but
this. One. Yeah, that's. Cause these are the bits that we voted on, this one and this one.
yeah, which is this.
okay, so it looks to me,
So, no, option 1 is just replace it as.
Yeah.
And B is our.
Sorry,
Yeah,
order.
well, that's fine. Heather, go ahead.
Okay, so option one.
Yeah.
Right, with all the green. Is it without? Yeah, without the widening, right? In this section in the green. So option two would be, this would be yellow. Wider, right, like we asked for, but that this would still be replaced. Which is what we, right?
That should be.
That should be in.
New section.
So that's where I think they're not making a good enough distinction between,
Okay.
so section upgrade, for example. I would like yellow here to read as, upgrade, widen through here. Okay, and then this section should say, I guess it would be green substructure replacement. I'm gonna ask her to take, I'll go through the legend, because it's now that I'm looking at it as a group without her explaining it to me, it's confusing me now. So
Should we just take this map, make categories and decide on it as a group? Yes. Like, should we just do this?
on their map that they made,
Yeah, should we just kind of choose our categories and redo this based on our priorities or?
I would speak to that. We already undertook that exercise and we already picked, I don't want to do it again.
No, you're right.
So I think as long as what we wanted is captured. And we are not considering as a committee, considering widening the sections that were suggested by the consultant. And I'm not speaking for the group, I'm just saying if that's the committee's will, then that just needs to be communicated appropriately. Alice?
That's sort of what I meant. I just meant like, with what we've already decided, delineate this and kind of say, yeah, that's what we meant.
I feel Heather has a good understanding of what we talked about and she has it well captured. I think there was a lapse in communication maybe between administration and consultant and Heather.
and that's exactly what I was gonna say, is I've taken down those notes, and what I'll do is before I send it back to Jen, our consultant, is I'll let you guys know the wording I've chosen and just in an email, so that you're like, yes, this makes sense, or why are you using those words?
Alice?
The part on the eastern part of the lake is yellow as well?
Yeah.
Okay, so you've noticed that. and
Yeah,
that's not,
yeah,
okay,
we talked about that too.
okay.
Doug?
Sorry, I maybe have confused myself, but when we came up with that list of priority of which sections to widen, that's basically option 2B, right? That's the one that we came up with. And then option
Correct.
2 is the consultant's proposed amendment to.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And then option 2B is obviously just being drawn hastily. They intended to overlay it on top of option 1, just like option 2 is done right now.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Doug. Beth?
Yeah, I think that Doug really clarified it. Do we need a motion to remove option 2, the consultant's version from the application?
I think that would be appreciated simply because, sorry, Albert. Okay, I think that would be appreciated because, like I said, if you guys want to go that direction now, it's not like this disappears. So if we get the feedback from Freya that this isn't accessible enough, right? Because accessibility, that though I get what you're saying, it's not anecdotal. They do have requirements for what accessibility is, right? And how they're grading that. So yes, I think a motion would be appreciated, but that keeping it in only makes this an option. So it's just getting us more points really when we submit something. It's not telling us which design we're ultimately going with, because that still has to be vetted by the public.
Alice?
If we vote-
And then Doug?
If we vote on option 1 and 2B, we just keep in mind that section R is gonna be
Yes,
Six,
that's already,
okay.
yeah.
Doug?
Sure, I'll make a motion to remove option 2 from the report and put option 2B in its place. And the reason why I say that is because I think we spent a lot of discussion on those points in 2B and which points were to be widened and which points weren't to be widened. So I'd hate to have to kind of rehash all that again. I think there was a lot of thought into that. And I mean, a report really should have 2 options. I don't think you really want to have 3 options and you kind of run into decision paralysis. I'm a favor of having A or B. So, you know, one or the other. And I think 2B is the one that we kind of landed on a few months ago. So my motion is to remove 2 and put 2B in its place.
Okay, thanks, Doug. So committee, we have a proposed motion before us now. So anyone want to speak to the motion, comments or questions? Yes.
Just a really quick, the option to the consultants is really very expensive too. Like, there's a lot of money here, and does FRIA really have all this, or even if they do, should we be, you know, like, this just seems to be a lot of money that, you know, if we actually had that money, maybe we could spend it on something else too. So I just think option 1 and 2B that our group has already discussed are reasonable to go in the application.
Thanks, Beth. Joan?
So with the motion of like, so we are doing a motion removing option 2, but does that mean that we like forget about option 2 in the future? Because as Heather said, if FRIA decides that our options are not accessible enough, I would think that we should just keep this as a backup, kind of like keep it in file, but not forget about it entirely, just in case we do run in with the unexpected that it's not accessible enough. That's what I would think.
Hey, thank you, Joan. I'm gonna look to administration to clarify, actually, if it's only option 1 and option 2B, and FRIA grants one of those, and then public feedback through the public consultation process says, you know, they wish that was a more accessible loop, or FRIA says, you know, we deducted points because of the accessibility issue. If there was a desire to put option 2 back on the table, would the money even be available to do it?
Typically, there is a lot of back and forth. However, I don't know that they'd give us the money to expand it from there. But I think to Beth's point, it depends how much money they have in the bank. There is typically a lot of back and forth, but to Joan's point, demonstrating, keeping this in and then engaging on, let's say, option 1, option 2, and the revised 2B that we're going to get back from them, then the community can really truly tell us what they're interested in. And we can move forward based on community feedback. So to keep it in makes it easier to make adjustments down the line, I guess, really.
Okay. Trevor, and then Doug.
I would like to keep option 2 in, just for 2 reasons. One would be application strategy is, you know, we're showing the estimated price point and we're coming in saying, but we want option 2B. Look how reasonable we're being, I guess, just as a cost value. And then the other one is yeah, public engagement. It gives the public another option to look at and understand why the BVOC is recommending the option that we're recommending.
Yeah, just before I go to Doug, Heather wanted to speak to that.
Trevor, sorry, did you say that to keep option 2 in will show FRIA how cheap 2B is?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Kind of
Okay, I just wanted
strategy
to make sure that I
look how
heard you
reasonable we are.
correctly. Okay, cool, got it. Thank you.
Doug?
I was just kind of going on the argument that if we're putting it in just to have a backup plan or a contingency, I mean, the logical conclusion of that argument is we widen the whole thing, then it's fully accessible all the way around. But in terms of having money for that contingency, I mean, if we're putting this thing in for like $4 million, it's a lot of spare money. I'm pretty sure it'll give us a lot of tools to do stuff. And that's all I kind of had on that.
Thanks, Doug. Alice?
I'm concerned with voting on this option right away because I'm not, because while I think like the way the strategy is laid out is quite good, I'm still hung up on the dollars. And I understand we're gonna go into closed session and talk about the dollars. So like if we're voting on this independent of the dollars, then sure, we can go ahead and do it now. But if we're not, if the dollars are what we're approving by voting for option 1, 2, and 2B or whatever we decide, then I would really like to maybe have that in closed camera session first.
Is it appropriate to go into closed session now?
Yeah.
Yes, we could, if somebody wanted to move to table this until after closed session, that would be appropriate. Doug?
I'll move to table my motion until after the closed session.
Hey, thanks, Doug. All those in favor of motion to table? Okay, and that's carried unanimously. So that's going to be tabled till after closed session. I need a motion from somebody to move into closed session. Alice?
I move that we moved into closed session.
Thank you, Alice. Committee, all those in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. We're gonna go into closed session. All right. Okay, we are back. We are out of closed session. Doug?
So I'll make a motion then. So my motion is that the committee recommends to administration that we're satisfied with the pricing strategy as written on the proposal, with the exception that it should be itemized in further detail. Does that work, Alice? I kind of tried to incorporate some of your comments there on that one.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Doug. Okay, any comments, questions, debate, discussion, committee?
Trevor, get the wording on that?
Trevor, did you capture that?
Yeah, Doug, could you say it one more time for me, please?
If I remember what I said. My motion is that. No, I don't remember.
Off as is.
The committee recommends to administration that we are satisfied with the strategy of pricing as written on the proposal, with the exception that there needs to be further breakdown of itemization.
Was that good, Trevor?
The acceptance should be further broken down with itemization. Yeah, got it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Read it back to us.
Yeah, Trevor, would you mind reading it back just to make sure that's that Doug's satisfied with it?
Yeah. Okay, so the motion is the committee recommends to keep the cost strategy in the free application as is, with the exception it should be further broken down with itemization.
Doug, you're good with that?
Yeah, I'm good with that. Thanks.
Okay. All right, committee, comments, questions, discussion, debate. Okay, seeing nothing, we will call to question. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate. And that's carried unanimously. Okay. Wait. Where were we?
I
Oh,
think,
there was another motion.
yeah, Doug's table motion.
Doug, did you want to bring your table motion back to the table?
Sure. Yeah. So tabled motion was to remove option 2 from the report and replace it with option 2B, with the assumption that prior to the closed session, there was a lot of discussion how 2B was incorrect in a few ways. So I assume that's all been captured there by Heather. So The motion is to remove 2 and install 2B in its place. And the reason for that motion is we put a lot of thought and discussion into the widened sections for 2B. So I'd like to keep that discussion intact.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Committee, anyone want to speak to it? Alice?
There's some question around flexibility of widening, maybe where public feedback comes back, says something where we have to change something, given we've really erred on the side of caution with what we're bidding with, that should be sort of taken care of, right? If we go back to them and say we want to widen the section and it's still within the price that they've granted us, then that should be no issue, right?
Or, sorry, just for clarity, so you're saying without option 2, if we, let's say they give us an amount for 2B and then the public comes back and they say, oh, we'd like this wider. If we can fit it in our budget, yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Well, that means we might have to cut other things, but yeah.
Bill and then Tom.
Just wondering why. Like you have options, that's when you have 2 options, why limit to just 1? That way you don't have anything. You got 1 option, that's it. That's you have more chance to get more funding if you have the second option.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Tom?
I guess conceptually, if you show option 2, does it show some flexibility on our part as far as accessibility? So I'm not sure how they would evaluate that, but does it give us just a little more conceptually, a little more flexibility as to what we may or may not do, depending on funding, depending on public feedback, depending on where the rubber actually hits the road at the end of the project.
Was that a question for administration or just a result?
In general, it's kind of more
Rhetorical
general question. Administration wants to deal with it, I would be happy.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of the point I was trying to get across, and I think you did it better than me, so thank you. Was just that it does demonstrate that by keeping 2 in there, it does demonstrate that we've thought about it. It demonstrates that we are willing to create a more accessible option if Free is willing to fund it. If they're not, that's fine. We have further options.
Alice? Oh,
So-
sorry, Doug and then Alice.
I mean, option 2B is still a more accessible option than option 1, right? And there was quite a bit of thought put into which sections are applicable for widening and which ones we don't recommend widening. I'd hate FRIA to be kind of the arbitrator. I can't pronounce that word today. I just hate for FRIA to kind of be the decision maker of which option to go. I mean, the way I kind of thought of it in my mind, there was a lot of thought went into 2B as the most appropriate accessible option. So that's what I'd like to see represented in the report. In regards to option 2, I'd hate us to be kind of forced into that path. Now, if we kind of go down the process into community engagement, there's a lot of folks that really want to see option 2. I mean, by that point in the process, you would have grant money and you would have contractor estimates. So you could be able to say a bit more definitively whether or not there'd be room to do that or not within that time scale, as that's much further down along the line. But I'd hate that to be the start of the process. And I'd hate to see 3 options in the report, because then you get too many, 1 or 2.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Alice?
I'll be in favor of this motion.
Okay, Beth?
Yeah, I think we did a lot of discussion on the option, and I'd like to see option 2B. I don't see the need for option 2 at this point.
Okay, thank you, Beth. Committee, anyone else? Doug, is your hand up? Did you want to speak again or? Nope, okay. Committee, anyone else? Okay, seeing no one else, we would call this motion to question. Trevor, can you read it back? I don't remember the wording exactly.
Motion to remove option 2 and replace with option 2B.
Okay, committee, all those in favor? Opposed? So that was carried. Sorry. 7-2. All right,
I think so, yeah.
yeah,
Sorry, what was the count?
it was 7-2, and it was Trevor and Joan against.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Heather?
Well, that's it. For that item, unless anybody else has further questions.
All right, questions in general on the application. Floor is open. Beth?
Just, it'd be nice to have a little more in the introduction about like the purpose of the Beaver Boardwalk, like community wetland might be nice words to include in there. Visitors, they use visitors, and then I realize, like, to me, I use visitors as tourists and people out of town visiting us rather than citizens. So when they say visitors, like tourists, this is a community wetland, so maybe again, a little more focus that this is a community wetland. Visitors from out of town are welcome, but it's not designed for them specifically.
Community, what did you say about community?
Community wetland, like have just maybe more focus that it is like the intention of the boardwalk was to sort of add to people's daily experiences in terms of having a nature experience right out their back door.
And that section is for me to bolster still, so thank you for that. Yeah. Okay.
Alice?
We have some documentation from Rick Bonner when he did the original proposal, and it has a lot of that background in it. So if you want that to help flesh out that
Sure.
section.
I think a lot of that is duplicated on the Explore Hinton. We took a lot of his notes from Beth and put it there,
Okay.
but send it to me and we'll take it.
Okay, yeah. It's just kind of mostly already done, you know?
Okay. Any other feedback that we'd like to give on the application?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Alice.
The stakeholder review, are we just not at the stage where we're identifying stakeholders yet? Because I just noticed it was just kind of like.
So that's for me to fill in.
Oh,
Yeah, and we did do a stakeholder list with the original Vivo committee that was presented to this group during a handover meeting that we had. So I was going to include all of those, include reference from the terms of reference. Are there any additional groups that you guys think that I wouldn't think of?
No, I
We
just
did a
thought- I
very
just thought they
robust
should be
list.
listed.
Yes, they will
Yeah.
be, yeah.
Alice?
So in the economic benefits, I think one thing that was page 5 of the AE section. Section 2.3. I just thought it's kind of like the same old, and I thought it would be neat to add a little bit of like, there's a long-term economic benefit to maintaining the physical and mental health of citizens. Like if you have a population that is, you know, out there walking and has a healthy relationship with nature and stewardship, like that actually makes it so that you have a community that's more able to do their day-to-day work. They're not taking stress leave as much. Like I don't know if that's worth adding, but I think that's like a kind of an undertone benefit that's not really talked about too much.
I don't know that it goes into 3, but I can find a home.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be flushing out 2.4 on that. That might be more of a social benefit.
Thank you. Doug?
I just had one comment, which was right at the start of the report. It kind of mentions option 1, option 2, which will now be 2B kind of, and it just kind of skims over that briefly. It doesn't do a lot of detail. And then you go later on to the detailed project budget, where it breaks it down in sections, which I assume is for option 1. I think in that bit there where it talks about option 1, option 2, I think that would be a good place to summarize the cost difference between 1 and 2 and flesh out in a little bit of detail what the advantage of option 2 would be for that additional cost. rather than having someone dig through the Excel spreadsheets later on. I don't know if anyone's going to do that.
What page are you on, Doug? Which section?
I'm on, so I'm referring to 1.3 where it says option 1, option 2, and it says option 2 is high traffic areas. And then it goes, and then that's really the only mention of option 1 or 2 within the body of the report.
So something a little bit more high level with respect to cost?
Yeah, absolutely. Because then you kind of go down to detailed project budget, section 3.2, which I assume is relevant to option 1. I mean, you don't need to put option 2 in there, right? But there should be a section somewhere that kind of breaks down the cost difference between 1 and 2 and what is the advantage of 2 at a glance. So someone doesn't need to go dig through the Excel spreadsheet to find it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Yep.
This is another, maybe not that important comment, but this whole business about world's longest freshwater boardwalk. Do we really need something like that in there? Is that even true?
It's the world's longest, so thank you for catching that. That's in our whole ISL documents, and it has been surpassed, if I recall. But I think the reason that they have worded it. What?
So let's get building.
Oh, they worded it as such, is because you'll remember that FRIA has that component of where you have to enter into and interact with nature. So I think by saying that it's long and we're showing the map that they're going into the forest, I think that's what she was trying to get at, but we'll definitely take out the world's part.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think like in the way Rick had it was he just said like it's a 3.0 kilometer or whatever it was, like just stay that long.
Yeah.
If you want a comparison, Crescent Valley Wildlife Management Area in southern BC, it's actually Rams City, which is international for waterfowl. And they have a boardwalk really similar to our same with everything, but it's not as long. So if you want some kind of comparison, nice.
Okay. Any feedback? Any further? Okay, if there's no additional feedback. The whole going once, going twice. But if there's no additional feedback, I do want to look to the committee. There's 10 minutes left in our scheduled meeting time. We do have another action item, which may be a fairly in-depth conversation as well. I'm actually going to look to you. Is there anything critical that needs us to deal with 5.2 today? Is there any risk if we push that off to next meeting?
Absolutely not. You guys have just asked for me to not lose sight of this and put it on the September agenda. This was the conversation that we wanted to have around reviewing our terms of reference, because at the end of the year, we'll go back to council, give them a bit of an update. And I know that there were a few small changes we wanted to make or potentially make with respect to what the scope is. So in the agenda, this is a link here. It's underlined in blue. So you can go back to your emails, click on that, give it a read, and we can definitely bring this to the next October meeting. And you guys can circle any areas that you would like to see changed. Very similar to how we did our prioritization exercise, we've come ready with some potential motions.
Betty, is there any opposition to moving item 5.2 to the October meeting? Okay, seeing no one in opposition, we'll do that then. Heather, if you want to make a note to bring that back at the October meeting. So that moves us to our round table. I'll start. Tom, you want to start? So sorry, for Bill's benefit, maybe. Round table is just an opportunity for us to talk about any feedback we may have gotten in the community or any thoughts or basically any feedback that's relevant to the group that you've garnered since the last meeting in debate. Tom, anything?
I haven't really got out, so that's one meeting and get back out again and get circulating. During the holidays, I saw a lot of different people from a lot of different places. It's still a draw for folks and still entertains me pretty good too. So I was hoping to get back out before it gets too deep into the fall.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Bill, I'm not sure if you've got anything. you want
I
to
just,
share?
like I said, I've already said before, I've met so many people on the boardwalk, they're looking at the map. And they're just wondering if there's really animals out there, they're scared to go out there because they're third quarters. And it's just, so I said, no, there's nothing, don't worry about the bears, we'll just run around. Coach over them a little bit, but they actually out there, I met everybody, like Barcelona, Spain, like I said, Venezuela, just everywhere, and I just talked to everybody. And they love the boardwalk, they wonder if the beavers out, I said, not in the daytime. Just in the evening and then in the morning, but they look at it. Other than a few locals that are mad about it, everything, it's just a great place. So I didn't know how vast it was. I'm still looking at this map, going how vast this thing. I just have a little circle that I go around. I do it's about 10 kilometers a day, but 3 times a day. But I see how vast the boardwalk is, so it's a big undertaking.
Sure. All right, thanks, Bill. Beth?
Oh, yeah, Fox Creek started feeding the beavers again. The beavers are building their winter food cache for this year. Yeah, they have actually fallen a couple of trees across the trail, but a volunteer went and cut them up and put them in the water near where the beavers could use them. They're right on the main trail. And I guess there's quite a bit of thistles. Are you going to use the town ever do thistle pull?
Yeah, we're trying, it's kind of a almost losing battle, but we're, we did do a bunch, but not really there, so this is kind of a new.
Oh,
It's over by Hans's house, there's a bad spot, like where Hans used to live, do you know where Hans used to live?
no.
Okay, so when you first kind of cut down on the Sutherland,
Southern.
yeah, you come down and it was right along College there,
Oh,
down from College. Yeah, there's a bad spot there.
I might, if I have time, it's getting late, but I might have a whiskey jack thistle pull and then I'll let you know.
We
if
can
we
haul
do
it
that.
away, yeah.
Yeah, if we could, if you could support us like you did
Sure.
with cleanup, that would be.
Yeah,
great.
that'd be amazing. We would appreciate that.
Just before I go to Alice, I'm just gonna ask Beth. I've noticed the thistles seem really bad everywhere this year. Do you know, is that in relation to the weather we had this year?
It's been building up year after year. after
Yeah.
year. They've been bad for
Yeah.
a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I have a property like on the place and like I work every year on it just to clear them out. But you can't not do it even when you're.
It's choking grass in lots of places.
Yeah.
I plant rhubarb.
That stuff grows.
Yeah. Rhubarb outgrows this.
Yeah.
We have it's kind of to clear out some areas. We're actually working on it. We have a wildflower kind of project that we're doing. So we'll there's a couple areas in town we've done and they're typically like bad thistle areas. We did down by Arrow, it's kind of the curling rink. That field there was a bad spot there. So we go in and we actually, I don't know how you feel about this, but we actually spray the thistle, like we kill the thistle, and then we go in after and we're gonna replace with wildflower plugs and seeds.
Wow.
So, and then hopefully, you know, that will overtake those thistle areas. It's kind of a pilot right now project that we're working on.
Yeah, no, I try to get them out before the seed goes. and
Yeah,
goes away,
yeah, that's the
but-
best.
But really, in the end, specific application to specific sites or plants or herbicide is.
It's the
you-
best way
you
to
end
deal
up
with the
having to
thistle.
do- Yeah, it's
And,
not like you're broadcasting it everywhere.
No,
Yeah.
it is the best way to deal with it, but we, in the last few years, we tried the pulling and whatever. It's, it doesn't work. I think it doesn't work, obviously, so. We're gonna do a bit of spraying. Over the next couple of years in really bad areas. Nothing. That's too invasive or bad that will hurt land, for example.
Well, thanks. I was a little off topic, but interesting. Alice?
I have a question for Beth. Is there like, because you have primary succession, secondary succession, and like, is there life after thistle?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think Chad's got an idea, is they make sure there's something.
Yep.
Well, if you just kill them and, oh, you usually like after this, so if
Like if you
other
just
weeds
leave
will
it?
come in. Pretty much in town, I would say seed it or do something, like make sure you're, follow it up with something. Cause the thistles will blow right back in.
We're gonna try and choke it up with some
Yeah,
flowers too, like
Yeah.
they'll
Yeah,
be good for bees and hummingbirds too.
yeah, Mary Reimer's in that small town East River Road, it's just, what do you
There's
do?
some really horrible areas and we tried to whack down a few of them, but there's only so much we could do.
yeah, you could just mow them before they seed, but that doesn't get rid of them. Yeah.
Hey, Alice.
Fall's coming, so migratory birds are coming to the boardwalk, so that's exciting. That's fine.
Cool. Joan?
I have nothing to report, unfortunately.
No, that's
Wait,
okay. We
how's
know
school?
you're away at school, so. Joan's joining us remotely because he's off to university.
Yay.
Everybody's done.
Doug?
Just a question for Heather. We briefly talked about the boardwalk specification. You mentioned it is being actively worked on by Associated Engineering. Do you think we might have something ready by the next meeting?
I think that's gonna be dependent, excuse me, on my conversation with our rep from FRIA, because as you guys will recall, there's like a schedule of when they take things. So that's what our conversation is about. So it's just gonna kind of depend when we're getting in the schedule for that. But we are about to discuss a change in date for our meeting, so that may be helpful there.
Anything else, Doug?
I will continue to bring up the specification on our monthly meeting.
Continue to bring up the specifications on a monthly basis.
Roger that. We'll just add it to every agenda.
Okay, thanks, Doug. Kevin?
Yeah, not a lot other, same as everyone else. I mean, I've been on the boardwalk a couple times lately and yeah, it's nice running into visitors as well. And I know I had one kind of a fun interpretive engagement with a couple of folks who were really asking beginner questions like what time do the animals come out and various things that I'm more used to hearing in my interpretive life in Jasper. but anyway, yeah, so it's kind of fun making the rounds and visiting there. And outside of that, it's just been really busy. I've been working on a lot of the comms of the Chatham wildfire. So yeah, and looks like we've got the upper hand on it. So resources are starting to be drawn down and yeah, it's looking like the worst of it is definitely behind us. So that's good.
Nice.
So
Great. Thanks, Kevin. Trevor?
Make me follow Kevin. I've got no like that.
What you get for having your camera off?
Yeah, I've got nothing to add other than with fall approaching, the leaves will be changing and the colors will be popping soon. So looking forward to it.
Yep, for sure. Great, thanks. Chad, do you have anything you want to add?
I just wanted to, Bill was asking about the piles, in the RFP for the last work that was done, the design standard that they were asking for was a minimum. I need glasses, 1140 helical pile at 3MOC. And it's all steel to be weathering steel or hot dip galvanized.
Chad, anything else? The plans, boardwalk this fall?
Well, the signs, those will be getting done soon, and. Oh,
Access Trans Mountain, did you follow up on that now?
We did, but it's too premature at this point. I'm gonna follow up when our new CIO is here.
Heather, you have anything?
Just the next item, so I'm good, nothing else.
Okay. 1 second.
Okay.
Okay. So my contribution to the roundtable is not too much, but a couple of weeks ago, my wife and I went for a walk with Beaver Boardwalk and met a very nice retired couple from Georgia who brought their son and daughter-in-law with them. They were up here for their 70th anniversary. Long time. They're old. Anyway. Anyway, the reason they were at the boardwalk, we had a chat with them. They actually came to visit Jasper. They heard about the boardwalk in Jasper, so they made a special trip to Hinton, spent the night in Hinton so they could visit the boardwalk and check that out. And then they also wanted to go to Cattleman to see the sheep. So that's pretty interesting. I find that's pretty neat, but the word's out there and people actually make a special trip to Hinton to see the boardwalk. And they too were asking about the beavers. Unfortunately, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I was like, well, come back tonight and I'd see them.
Just gotta tell them that they're still in their cages.
Okay, I think that's it for the roundtable. Third item. Here keeps closing. Next meeting date, Heather.
Thank you, Councillor Dashik. So typically our meetings are the second Wednesday of every month. However, that week, administration, actually that day, administration has to submit everything for budget. So my availability to create the agenda, put it together, get it to you guys somewhat on time is going to be limited. And then I do expect that the following week, our senior leadership team will be requesting that we make amendments before things are presented to council. So I'm wondering if, the range of the 20th, 21st, or 24th might work. Are you here? Yeah. When's the
And next week.
next week?
What's the Wednesday 2 weeks after that?
26th, yeah.
Because Wednesdays are generally good for the group, I believe. Is Wednesday the 26th? Like then we're in another meeting like 3 weeks later.
Or perhaps that meeting will turn into like an engagement.
The November one? Okay, well, we'll just worry about the October meeting for now then. Does the October 26th, does that work for most people?
Yeah.
I can make it.
Yeah, I think it's September. Yeah.
Okay. Zoom crowd, you guys good with that? Yeah, okay. Okay, so we'll set the next meeting date then for October 26th. Okay, seems okay with that. So, same time, same place.
Great.
Okay. Well, committee, if there's nothing further, that brings us to the end of our agenda. Need a motion to adjourn.
To make a motion to adjourn.
I'm the motion man. Thanks, Tom. Okay, motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Everybody else is speaking. All right, you're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
I don't care.
See you guys.
Take care.
I got